be right. Riddle! Off with your head! Disney Twisted-Wonderland the Animation.
All right. Jimmy, I promise you, we won't be here for 30 minutes, but allowing the time, we'll have some fun between it, if that's okay with you all.
I don't know. We're talkers. We may take up the full half hour. Don't underestimate
You
us.
ask enough questions.
I'm not Jared Chambers from the Culture Collective. Michael Paul, thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations, because today we're here to talk Disney Twisted Wonderland the Animation, a new episode streaming weekly every Wednesday on Disney Plus. Gentlemen, how you doing today?
Good. Great.
Fantastic.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I want to start off because I think at this rate now, if you see either of your names on a project, it's a no-brainer. It's just the respect that you two have earned and the trust that you all have gained from us, the fans, over the years. And obviously the two of you together is like, well, hell yeah. And with that, I'm curious though, because yeah, I consider you both voice acting and anime royalty. And coming into this, and the first thing I thought was like, oh, Disney's getting into anime. Interesting. And there's a blend of anime, and then obviously a lot of the Disney animation is in there at times too. Obviously to the callbacks to the characters and the significance of these characters to the story. I want to know for you both, because have been dancing around in anime for so long. What would you say is different about this than anything that you've ever done? What really made this one stand out for you both?
Shall I start, Paul, or do you want to take it?
Please, by all
Okay.
means.
So for me, it's kind of like a homecoming in a weird way because I grew up absolutely obsessed as a kid with Disney villains. Disney villains were great. They were over the top. They were fabulous. They were really the kind of architects of the stories they were in. And as a little kid, especially growing up when and where I did and who I was, I couldn't help but be drawn into that. And I think I said it somewhere else too, that like they're so. I don't necessarily approve of what they would do, but I would love the confidence they had doing it. But they were fascinating, and so and kind of I pretended to be them all the time. When we were playing as kids, I'm like, I'll be Jafar, or I'll be Ursula. Anyone, always. And just an excuse to dress up as best I could. I would raid my mother's closet for all the things I could use to like color coordinate to be like, I am now this villain, and they're really truly as I grew into my craft as a young person, I really would keep going back to those performances and note that. Some of the voice acting, I would say all of the voice acting for Disney villains is some of the best this industry voiceover has ever produced. They're so compelling. They strike this beautiful balance between being incredibly over the top, but also very grounded, which is so hard to do. It's such a delicate alchemy that few performers, I think, are able to strike, which is why I think Disney villains tended to be played by very seasoned actors.
Yeah.
Like you had to know. It was like almost like the equivalent in this business of taking on a Shakespeare role. Like you gotta know yourself. You have to know your limits, and you gotta know everything you can to bring your whole person into this role. And so that inspired me to become an actor. Or it was a crucial element in my deciding to become an actor. It was the dream, this distant dream as a young man that maybe one day I'll get to be a Disney villain. And now, in a sense, I'm getting to kind of pay homage to all of them. And to not only be part of this wonderful project that is kind of bringing anime and traditional Disney Western animation together in a way that we get to be part of that bridge and not only get to bring everything we know from our experience with anime, but also get to fulfill our love of the things we watched growing up before anime was on our radar. And it's lovely. It's lovely. I don't know where I'm gonna go after this.
Only one way, it's down.
I don't know what's left. I've peaked.
Yeah. Go for it, Paul.
Everything Jay said, I can only agree with. I mean, Disney has had such an impact on me. It's all of the movies I grew up watching. I've loved and fantasized about going to Disney World. since I was a kid. Funny enough, my sister is literally celebrating her birthday today in Disney in Florida
Mm,
with my nephew and my niece. And one thing that's just been so kind of cool in a as a performer and in my career is you never think you're going to get an opportunity to be a part of such a large IP and for something that's Disney that so many people are going to consume on a global level.
yeah.
It kind of gives me props to my nieces and nephew to be like, that's my uncle and
Yeah.
this new really cool Disney thing. And some of these performances, like Jay was saying, I look at Lion King or Hercules, and these are Shakespearean level characters and performances that are being had, and to get an opportunity to be a part of that legacy is something I do not take for granted, and I don't think anybody in the cast has taken for granted. There are exceptional performances across the board,
Yeah.
and it was intimidating to kind of walk into this. And for me, kind of, there's multiple books as the game and the mangas have classified them.
Yep.
And this first book is about Riddle. So it was kind of like trial by fire to just be the first person up to kind of explore what this is going to be for people. And I've been a huge fan of anime my entire life,
Yeah.
and obviously a fan of Disney. And I think one thing that anime does really well is it crafts these stories that people may or may not have ever experienced in any other way. And as a performer, I treat it no different than I would, me being on an episode of live action television or as a
Yeah.
film. I try to bring that same grounded and realness to these things. And I think we're seeing that shift in anime now and the quality of performances we're getting. So I really hope it bridges the gaps for a lot of people who may have never encountered anime before. And hopefully this is the just the beginning for what Disney can do.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many different ways to play with this. But being a little bit biased, I think this is the coolest combination of things you could ever imagine. Disney villains, anime characters,
Yeah.
cool outfits. It's got everything.
You're entirely right. There's so much I can pick out from what you said, and I hopefully all the viewers they really dissect that. The folks such as Michael and yourself, like you go to the conventions, and that's been sort of your walking journey of saying like I know we are classified as voice actors, but y'all really do put everything into it, your whole physique into it, and they are felt as real performances. And I think the value and the understanding of voice acting, I think the world isn't just getting onto it. I think we've known for a long time. I think now the higher ups are starting to see the value and appreciate the craft. And I do think that Disney now taking a swing into this genre is an excellent thing. And I will give a little bit more credit because I don't want to overlook Turning Red, because I do feel like Turning Red was definitely the beginning. That third act was straight out of any anime that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But this is definitely, as you said, Paul, I think this is definitely going to be the gateway of getting people in. And I definitely want to also do like give a shout out to like the publicists and stuff that I work with, because I just trust them. And when I saw this pop up, I was like, I absolutely need to see this. And I was been begging. I got to see 3 episodes. I've been begging to see the rest because I not only did I need to fully prep, but I just wanted it for myself because I was just hooked from the beginning. So I wanted to come to you all in that still, because as I did start to dig and dig and dig, and after have seen the first 3 episodes, I realized that what I was getting myself to was much bigger than just watching the animation. As you
Mhm.
mentioned, the manga, the video game, which now I'm guess when I go back to my next convention, I'm going to start seeing cosplays like, I know what you are now, finally. That feeling. Which direction should I go next? And if y'all two can also help me and the other folks who may just be their first time, what else would you direct them in terms of really understanding the lore, and just how big and popular this fandom may be, instead of just it being their first time watching it this month?
There's so much. There's like you said, the game, the manga. I mean, there's even I have it right in front of me. There's these novels that are full on books of the entirety of these stories, and there's so much for people to consume. So if you watch the anime first, go back and read the
Okay.
novels and play the game. I'm still playing the game, and it's just there's so much to consume, and I hope we keep getting more. I mean, the game is still ongoing, the novels are still being released, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot.
What about you,
and
Michael?
and
Give us some advice. Give us some help out here.
I mean, my advice too is, and I feel that this is already kind of working, is I hope it brings a new generation of people that have formerly focused mostly on anime, to original Disney films. This iconic
Mm.
pantheon of films that, everyone knows because they're just kind of part of our cultural DNA now, I suppose. They've
Yeah.
been around for so long and had such an impact. But going back to the original animated films and watching them, and seeing, how, maybe you haven't seen them since you were a kid, but man, do they hold up. And the performances, especially if you look at it just from a story structure and just the animation style, and again those lovely, lovely villain performances.
Yeah.
Again, that's my own particular focus because I just love Disney villains. And it's really fun to think about these villains now being part of this kind of deeper lore that's taken them out of their story, their original story, and put them out into the ether in a way where, they're almost becoming, a new gods, as it were. And it's really fun. And I think just I encourage people, like, I believe with all my heart that really fascinating and iconic characters are iconic because they grow, they change,
Yeah.
they sort of they go with the ebb and tide of the culture and still remain relevant somehow by always speaking to something in our current situation.
Yeah.
And very, very few characters do that. I mean, you have, like, in literature, you have like your Sherlock Holmes, or or your Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And there's a reason those characters survive and everyone knows
Yeah.
who they are, even if you've never read a single Sherlock Holmes story or read
Yeah.
the Robert Louis Stevenson novel of Jekyll and Hyde. And same thing with these villains. I mean, they've existed in one form or fashion now, many of them for the better part of a century. Some
Yeah.
of them the better part of a century, and they're just there. And
Yeah.
it's so cool to see them put in this new context. And I hope it brings people to this wider awareness of what those characters, I think we need them. We
Yeah.
need Disney villains.
Yeah.
I think they help, they point the way to a lot of things, and I think they help if approached in just the right way, both as an audience, as a consumer of media, but as actors. It really, looking at these characters and trying to wind your way into why do they endure. It's a great way to light parts of your own inner life that you didn't know. Like I said before, like, the Disney villains, like what they do, like, man, I don't want to kill a bunch of puppies to make a coat, but Cruella has something to say about the human
Yeah.
condition, as odd as that may sound. And there's a reason we still go back to her. And the image of her driving the car is like, oh, what is that about? They're great villains, and I think that's the appeal. Sorry, thank you for coming to my TED Talk, but
No, I'm
it's
here
part of the
for it.
appeal is that
I'm
these
locked in.
villains kind of give us permission to explore in a very safe way aspects of ourselves that we normally restrain or repress because it's not appropriate to, tell everyone off with your head when you're mad. But man, wouldn't it be psychologically wonderful to access that anger when it's useful and appropriate?
Yeah.
Likewise with the confidence and the sense of fashion and just a different relationship to the world. Disney villains are some of the most iconic creations of all time, and it's lovely to see the current generation still accepting them as relevant and finding their own way into them. I hope that answered your question. I must confess, I've forgotten what you asked.
No, 100%. What's very eerily feeling right now, the spine chill I'm having is at San Diego Comic-Con, I had a chance to talk to Andreas, Jim Cummings, and John Ramirez as they celebrated 30 years of Disney villains. And I told Jim straight up, I said, as a kid, we kind of look at some of these characters very linear, like good or bad. And villains obviously makes it very clear that they're the bad guys. But I was like, I grew up and I started to see the world much bigger, and I lead through empathy. And I said, you know what? It is really hard for me to sit here and call Scar a bad guy. I just recently watched Mufasa, and we saw that Mufasa was just a kid trying to be accepted by who he thought was his brother. And somebody got a little bit of fame and attention and exiled him. I'm not saying what he did was wrong, but I kind of understand what that means to just want to just be accepted and be there with the people that you feel loves you. And thus it sends you in a whole different trajectory, which is why I always say it never hurts to be kind to somebody, because you just never know how it can change your day.
Yeah.
I really, really feel that with this anime here, that while only watching 3 episodes, I feel like there's gonna be a little bit more conversations about who some of these villains, who they really are, and kind of seeing them through another light. And I will also say too, I think it's episode one, or it's definitely got to be episode one. We get introduced to the different houses, like they're pretty much put on a pedestal as rock stars.
Mhm.
And I'm like, are they going to say anything bad here? But in a way, by just that alone, you said like, yeah, they did some cool things. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we get it. Jafar went out here and he did what he did, but it's like, but also in a way, it's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
Well,
I want,
I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, every villain is the hero of their own story.
Yep.
You know, no one casts themselves as the villain.
yeah,
And if they
yeah,
do, it's because they're like, really, I'm just the hero in this weird, like, flip side version of reality. But they're what they do. They feel justified, and that's how you have
yeah,
to play them. Otherwise, it just falls flat.
Mhm.
You know, it
yeah,
becomes a caricature of what is otherwise a really compelling idea.
yeah.
You guys were making me think. I recently was remembering, or was watching, going through the Disney movies, and I became fascinated with, Ursula used to exist within the Kingdom of Atlantis, and she was exiled similarly. And I'm like,
Yep.
why? What was the reason why? I mean, like, you start figuring out like these people who were, or these characters who were potentially on the good guy team, and then something happens and changes, and where they see the world through a different lens, and then they become, well, you think your way is right, but I also think that this way is right. And then there's a whole
Hmm.
allegiance that comes with, like Scar and the hyenas, and it's like, we just want to eat. This person's gonna help
Yeah.
us eat. This has got to be the good guy.
Hmm.
So it's all about perception. It's all
Yep.
about where you come from, and again, trying, like Jay was saying, empathize with the way that these villains are choosing to go forward in life. They believe it is the right thing to do, or
Yeah.
the thing that they have to do, and that's the best way that I think us as actors can play them.
It,
um
it's so funny. I just pulled a Ursula card out of a Lorcana pack earlier, and it made me trigger the whole story of like, yeah, she actually was just a normal person before all of
yeah.
this happened. So, man, everything's coming full circle. Let's have a little bit of fun here. So, as I mentioned, the different houses, there are 7 different dormitories here, and I think Paul, you may have a little bias to yours, but if not, I would love to hear if you could personally affiliate with one. Who would it be and
Hmm.
possibly why?
Oh man, if I could personally, I mean, they're all great. I do have a bias, obviously, because I think that there's such a fun celebration of tea and delicacies and desserts that I do love about Heartslabyul and all of
Yeah.
these traditions. Maybe a little too strict for me personally. Um, but coming up, I really think that Savannah Claw is cool. And again, we're talking about Lion King here and everything, and I think we get to see a little bit, like, either in the intros or the trailers. There's a lot of like sports themed things, and I think that's a fun thing that gets touched upon in the games and in future seasons, hopefully without
Yeah,
spoiling
yeah,
anything. And it's
yeah.
Leona's such a cool character. I mean,
As
we
I was
see
going, I was deep diving on Leon.
in the first episode, this whole place is engulfed in flames, and he's just like chilling back. He's like,
Yep.
me, I'm not gonna hunt anything. Like, what, are you kidding me? Let these people blow everything up. I don't care. And I just think that's really cool and fun.
Yeah. What about you, Michael?
You know, I kind of just want to stay with the Night Raven because I mean that's where I belong, and it gives me access to all the other houses, so I don't have to
Yeah.
choose. I'm very bad at choosing, which is why I'm really great. I feel in playing like characters who have like a Russian roulette table of personalities to choose from. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, today I'm this, today I'm that. I don't know, you decide. It's just how I live my life. But you know, I love the aesthetic of Scarabia. Like, I kind of dig. I dig. I mean, Jafar was also like the first villain that I encountered as a kid. That
Yeah.
I was in high school. Oh Jesus, I'm aging myself. I was in high school when Aladdin came out. I was a freshman.
Yeah.
That's important.
But I was in drama, whatever, and of course all the drama kids. We loved Aladdin. We sang the songs. We played
Yeah.
out all the parts, and I Jafar was probably one of the first. I did a bit of him for an assignment in my class, so he was the first villain I tried to like imitate not professionally, but in the capacity of an actor plying their trade. And later I got to, meet that voice actor at a con, and I was like, so nice to meet you, Mr. Good. Thank you. It was lovely. It was lovely. Not at all the villain you would expect, which is usually the case. Usually the actors that play the villains are the nicest people. Paul is an example of that.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny. You just reminded me, talking about college. The first musical I had ever done, I hadn't acted until I was in college, and my director, theater professor at the time, we did an original musical called Roasting Alice, and I played a version of the Queen of Hearts. Funny enough, this is a very full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah, and that's just so funny to think about now, and I haven't really thought about that in a very long time. So that's so crazy.
Between that and my thing with the Disney villains and coming home and all that stuff, maybe the Disney villains really are a pantheon of gods in some weird way, and they're kind of slowly drawing all their power to them, and we're instruments of that. I'm perfectly fine with that fate, by the way. I have no complaints.
Oh, man.
That's so cool.
So, in case anybody, again, is their first introduction, obviously they can read the things online, or they've checked out the first episode. I think the next episode is going to drop per this discussion tomorrow. Michael, Paul, talk to us about your characters. Michael, obviously with Dire, and Paul with Riddle. Talk to me in terms of how you describe them. If anybody was just picking up, or let's just say more somebody, like the friend or homie or the nephew, nieces, or family members. Like, let's not read the synopsis, but like, when you really had to sell your character to folks, how would you go? And I already know Michael's gonna be like, oh, he's so elegant, he's kind of mysterious. I mean, he lights up every room, but he also has some high demands. You do what he wants, or you're out of the school. But I am curious to hear how would you sort of depict who these characters are.
I would tell someone who is meeting Crowley for the first time or considering him, inviting him to a party. I'm like, it's great. He'll be dressed to the nines and he will be fascinating to watch. Don't trust him. Understand that anything he is saying to you is one through a mask, and it is a persona that is crafted in that moment to be whatever he needs to be to get what he wants out of you. Which sometimes is for the good, sometimes not. But he is also, he is definitely part of that wonderful eccentric educator trope, which I love personally. And I've said this elsewhere. I come from a long line of eccentric educators. My mother and grandmother and her mother were teachers, and very eccentric in their way. And so I had a lot to sort of draw from. But there's a certain abstract quality to someone with that personality, because they're always in teacher mode. And teachers have to be a little manipulative, is perhaps an unkind word to say, but they have to sort of lead someone out of their first reaction to something. And so they can't just be like, bad teachers are the ones that just like hit you with a ruler or say, no, you're terrible. It's the way they have to kind of subtly socially engineer. There's a word. There's a phrase that's much kinder. They have to kind of socially engineer in order to educate sometimes. And Crowley is definitely a person who believes in that.
Gosh.
Well said.
I'm gonna steal the kind of the party analogy here, and I think if first of all, I don't know if I would recommend anyone invite Riddle to a party unless you're gonna adhere to a long list of rules, and you better have those rules in place. I think he would be great at maybe manning the karaoke or the music that's gonna be played. Being in charge of the music. No one will touch it, and everything will be strictly according to that list. Listen, I think from what you see from the early episodes, he's very misunderstood himself, and he comes across, and in his own mind, rightfully so, as this tyrannical, by the book, the rules must be adhered to type of person. And as we get to see in this series, there is a reason for why he believes these things. And I think, without this order that's in place, without these rules and regulations, it would just be chaos. And for that is unacceptable. And at his core, I think he wants everybody to do well, and he wants this to be one of the most prestigious academies in the universe that it exists in. He wants the best for people so long as they go by the rules, you know? It's like this is the pathway to success for you. And you know, people way smarter than us as him have created this type of bumpers for us, and anyone who kind of breaks that path is seen as an enemy, and their head may roll if they decide to ruin ceremonies or you
Ooh.
know speak out of turn. So I think he'll be an exciting character for people to learn more about and to see his backstory and to see kind of the twists and turns that exist within Twisted Wonderland.
Amazing. We got about 2 minutes left. I feel like this question might be a little loaded, so let's see how we can get through this. Listen, of course, I gotta go on the deep end for this. We talked so much about the Disney villains, and obviously there's 7 featured for this. But if we could own an original dorm at Night Raven College, what would it be called? And what would be the most outrageous rule number 1 for it?
Ooh. Like
Oh my God.
of our own inspiration, you mean? Like that has nothing to do with Disney in a way?
Well, I think that might be a little easier because you start thinking of the Disney villains. I was like, oh man, let me make sure I got some on my sleeve first. I mean, we did mention Cruella de Vil, which was definitely a good one there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll fair game across the board.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm gonna stick with Cruella de Vil. And of course, you know, it would be about fashion. It would be fashion.
Yeah.
Definitely not a veterinary school. But it'd be a fashion school, and that would be delightful. I would love, yeah.
Man, I'm gonna take the first thing that's come to my mind here, and maybe something inspired by Neverland, you know, the Peter Pan, Captain Hook universe. And obviously, if this is led by Peter Pan, it would be just being fun and childish and all of those things that are going with your imagination. But my gosh, Captain Hook, it would be the antithesis of that kind of in a way, where it would be like no fun and no imagination. So I don't know if that's the rule I'd want, but maybe we put Peter in charge of this dormitory.
Maybe the Neverland house is like the daycare center.
Yeah. I like that.
I don't know, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Captain Hook would be a rough dorm leader, I feel like, or a character inspired by that. That'd be rough.
It'd be like a metalworking class.
Right. Hey, yeah, maybe it's more vocation. Maybe they deal with a lot of the amenities that happen around college.
Yeah.
Okay, we're spawning spin-offs right now.
Yeah, you have it.
But you'd be late for everything because you're not allowed to have clocks.
True. Oh, true. Oh. Very true.
Guys, I know my villain lore. Don't even at me.
Well, look at that. Before we know it, talking about not having clocks, 30 minutes gone. Just that
and you thought we wouldn't make it to 30 minutes.
I had a little faith we would, but I've been respected and fan of you all for so long, and there we have it here to talk about a project that I said I was like, listen, 3 episodes, I'm hooked. It's just it's a long and deep rabbit hole of direction of lores to go, from Reddit to YouTube to the manga, novels, to the game, but ultimately to the animation each and every week on Disney Plus. Disney's Twisted Wonderland. Michael and Paul, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations. And I'm sure we're going to be talking again. Maybe I'll beg them to see if we can have an end of season discussion once we can lay everything out. I would love to really dive into this a lot more, because I can tell how much y'all are holding back.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, let's do it.
I really appreciate the time for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Our
so
pleasure,
much.
my
Pleasure.
friend. Thank you.
Hey, Niger. I